It is lengthy. I am going to read it all, but I want to spend as much time as possible on the last section of Luke 7. So if it sounds like I'm rushing, it's because I am. But I promise, if I blow through something and you guys want me to back up, or you have questions, or you have comments, you may interrupt me. You can shout at me. You can holler. I will not be offended. All right, Luke chapter 7, starting in verse 1. After he had finished all his sayings in the hearing of the people, this of course is Jesus, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. And I'll stop and pause here for a second. A centurion, it's where we get the word century. Of course, it means 100. So he was over 100. Romans were typically not well liked. I'm being kind here. They were hated by Jewish people for a number of reasons. But typically somebody who was a soldier was really not well liked, and especially somebody who had rank. They were not typically well liked by Jewish people. And so here we have a centurion, and we're going to get a little bit of context. Luke gives us a lot of insight here. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews. Kind of an interesting move here. He doesn't send his Roman people, he sends elders of the Jews to Jesus, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue." Very fascinating. He's the one who built our synagogue. In antiquity, we've uncovered, archaeologists have uncovered a lot of synagogues that have kind of an archway into the entrance, or it will have a cornerstone, and it'll say built by, this synagogue was built by, and a lot of these were Gentile people, prominent Gentile leaders, like council members of cities. Romans actually, it wasn't that uncommon for Roman people to build Jewish synagogues. Now the question is, because we don't have a lot of context, Luke actually gives us a lot of insight into this. But typically we don't have a lot of context, and so the question is, were they doing that to maintain, remember the whole thing in the Roman Empire is Pax Romana, Roman peace. And the Romans were off and on friendly towards other religions. I don't want us to have this idea that there was this blanket persecution, and if you lived in the Roman Empire and you weren't worshiping all the gods and goddesses, that you were under automatic persecution. That wasn't the case. There were a lot of places where they were pretty lenient towards other religions, so long as they were not disturbing Pax Romana, Roman peace. And so the question is, were they building synagogues as a favor to the Jewish people? And we see evidence of that in different places where Roman officials, Charles, help me out, the guy who built the Roman temple, the Jewish temple, which Roman leader was that? Was that Alexander? Didn't Alexander the Great build, or contributed at least to the temple?
He wasn't Roman, he was Greek.
Oh, Greek, that's right, yeah. And so we do see evidence of this, right? Where people from other cultures, they contribute financially, they contribute to what they consider the stability. A lot of times these are political moves, though. Their motive is political, to kind of get in with the Jewish people, because they knew the Jewish people had a lot of influence. There were obviously a lot of Jewish people throughout the Roman Empire. But here, Luke gives us a lot of insight, and it's because this guy legitimately had deep faith. He builds a synagogue. Verse 6, and Jesus went with them. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof." Now, a little interesting thing. What were the Jewish elders saying? He's worthy. Luke is doing an intentional contrast here. He is worthy. The centurion is worthy to have you come and do this for him. He has a servant. The servant is very meaningful to him. He's worthy to have you do this. What's his response? He sends soldiers. I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, to even step foot into my house. I'm not worthy of that. I don't know about you, but if I heard Jesus was coming to my house, I would probably be, you remember the whole Mary and Martha? Wasn't it Martha was cleaning the house and getting it all ready and frantically trying to prepare it for Jesus to come into the house? I would be the one frantically getting the house ready because I wanted it to be perfect, and I'd be totally into that. But this guy says, I'm not even worthy to have you come under my roof. That's fascinating to me. Therefore, I did not presume to come to you, but say the word and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority with soldiers under me, and I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him. I underlined this word marveled because it's only used one other time. It's used in the Gospel of Mark, and Jesus marveled only 2 times in the entire Gospels. It's right here in Luke 7:9, and then in Mark, I think it's chapter 6, I don't remember the verse. Jesus marveled when he came into his hometown at their lack of faith. Kind of interesting. Jesus wondered, or he marveled, or he was amazed. There's this radical contrast when that word is used the 2 times that Jesus marveled. One, he marveled, he was amazed at the lack of faith in his hometown. Here, it's the only person literally that Jesus marvels at, that he's amazed at. This word is used because of the guy's faith. And of course, he's a Gentile. What's Luke known for? Luke's gospel, he's highlighting Gentiles throughout his entire gospel. Gentiles, women, people living in poverty, the outcast. Luke highlights these people over and over and over. Jesus marveled at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, he said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. And when those who had been sent returned to the house, this is interesting to me. They found the servant well. Jesus never went to the house. Now, I have a theory about that. I don't know if I'm right. This is speculation. But what was the request of the centurion? What did he ask? Specifically, what did he ask Jesus not to do? Go to the house. Don't come to my house. I'm not worthy to have you step foot under my house. Now, we're guilty of doing this all the time. People tell us not to do something or to do something, and we do the polar opposite. I saw a short video once, and I think I mentioned this once before here, but the video was titled, Take the Drink. When you walk into somebody's house and they say, can I offer you anything? Can I get you a drink? What do we say? Kelly, what do you say? No, thanks. I'm good. I don't need it. No, really. Is there anything I can get you? Can I get you a drink? Can I get you whatever it is? Please let me get you a drink. No, I'm good. No, really, don't trouble yourself. We say no. And the video was, say yes to the drink, right? Say yes. When somebody says, can I get you a drink? Yes, please. Because what that does is it honors the person, and that person legitimately wants to get you something. They literally want to do something kind for you. And they're not saying it just to be nice. They're saying it because they legitimately want to be hospitable. So when you say yes to the drink, it shocks them because they're like, wait, this is the first time ever that somebody has said yes. Jesus is saying yes to this man's request. Please don't come to my house. I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof. Jesus says, okay. And he heals the man. I think that's really significant. I think it's really cool. So Jesus honors the man and never shows up. This guy never meets Jesus, never sees him face to face. Jesus heals the servant. I think that's incredible. Okay, this story. Soon afterward, he went to a town called Nain. This is a tiny little village. And his disciples and a great crowd went with them. Imagine this massive crowd of thousands, presumably thousands of people, at least several hundred. They descend on this little town, and I can't imagine what the townspeople were thinking at that point. As he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a considerable crowd from the town was with her. All right, I'm going to stop here for a second. First of all, you have a widow. Typically, that's equated with poverty, right? Generally speaking, if you were a widow, you were probably pretty poor, unless you had a significant inheritance or had several sons who, by law, had to financially take care of you. Right? She had one son. He's gone. He dies. What does that mean for her, for future hope?
She's at the mercy of the other Jews.
Yeah. She's at the mercy of the other Jews. What do we know about their behavior based on the Gospels? I mean, just generally.
They often screw up.
Yeah. Even when they're doing things right, like I think of Acts chapter 6, when they're doing things right, they're distributing food to the people. There's like this big division. There's the Hellenists and the Jewish widows, and like there's this big disagreement, and there's like some people are being overlooked in the food distribution. Like we're talking food. They can't even get that right to feed people. Because of disagreement. It wasn't because they ran out of food or they didn't have proper order or structure or whatever. It was disagreements on whether they should even receive food. So yeah, she's at the mercy of the Jewish people. So that's really important. What are some other things? Does this story sound familiar to any other stories that we hear in the scriptures? One widow, one son dies.
It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if it's the one you're referring to, but Ezekiel the prophet, who comes to the woman who has oil. It reminds me a lot of I think it's the prophet Ezekiel in the Old Testament who, in the famine, and he goes to the widow, and she's like, I was just about to make flour. I guess it's flour, and I only have enough to make for me and my son, and then will die.
Yeah.
And he says, make some for me and him also, and they live for a while.
So the two prophets who raised a widow's son, both Elijah and Elisha, right? And it's a direct, I mean, almost identical parallel, right? It's a non-Jewish, so you have Gentile widow. You have very similar stories. You have like they're kind of holding on to hope, and that son was, financially speaking, like survival speaking, that son was their hope. And of course, there's a little bit, I guess you could say, a play on the only son who's given up and is resurrected. Where do we see that? We obviously see that parallel with Jesus. This is my son, whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. God gives his only son. He dies. He's raised. And so, yeah, very close parallels between the prophets Elijah and Elisha. All right, verse 13, and when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her. This is really interesting. The word that's used, the reason I underlined this, the word that's used means that his bowels were turned. Literally, that's what the word means. It's kind of gross, but it's a way of saying he felt it in his gut. He felt compassion. Do you ever feel that? Like does your heart ever break on a level where you literally feel it in your stomach? Like you get sick to the stomach. It's that initial, not because you're going to throw up or because you have a stomach bug or whatever. It's because you're so moved by compassion and sorrow on behalf of the person who's struggling. I've been in situations where I know going to Haiti, Dave can probably relate to this. When we went to Haiti, some of those homes, when you walk into, it's like you know it's going to be bad, but when you walk inside of that house, something breaks inside of you that you can't put into words. I could describe it all day long. I could have you guys crying. I could use like emotionally packed words to try to describe what we witnessed in those homes. Dave, would that do it justice? It's heartbreaking. It's devastating. The smells, right? You walk in, there's a certain smell that's associated with poverty. And even people, when you see how sick they are, you see the yellow in their eyes from being malnourished. There's something that breaks inside of you, and it's so hard to describe. And this is the word that Luke uses here. And it's interesting because Luke's a doctor. So he's using kind of medical terminology to describe physically what's going on with Jesus emotionally. So it's kind of a pretty cool mix here that Luke does. When he saw her, he had compassion. His stomach was turned. He felt it in his gut. He had compassion on her and said to her, "Do not weep." And then he came up and he touched the bier, and the bearers stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." And the dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized them all, and they glorified God, saying, "A great prophet has arisen among us, and God has visited his people." And this report about him spread through the whole of Judea and all surrounding country. All right, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. The disciples of John, that's John the Baptist, they reported all these things to him, and John, calling two of his disciples to him, sent them to the Lord, saying, "Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?" This is fascinating to me. What was John's purpose from the very beginning? Yeah, to prepare the way for the Messiah, for Jesus. He knew this. John the Baptist, he knew from the very beginning that his mission was to make straight the paths for the one who is to come. When Jesus comes, what does John the Baptist say? "I am not even worthy." Yeah. The straps of the sandals are not even unworthy to be untied. John is not worthy even to be in the presence of Jesus. This is fascinating. And then he says, "Go back to the Lord and say, 'Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?' And when the men had come to him, they said, 'John the Baptist has sent us to you, saying, Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?' In that hour, he healed many people of diseases and plagues and evil spirits, and on many who were blind he bestowed sight. And he answered them, 'Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up. The poor have good news preached to them.'" That's very much a Lukeism. right? The outcast, the poor. Luke really focuses on them more than any other gospel writer. All right, go tell him these things. And blessed is the one who is not offended by me. When John's messengers had gone, Jesus began to speak to the crowds concerning John. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? Does anybody go in the wilderness to see a reed that's shaken? So what Jesus is saying is, I want you guys to know, because they all witnessed this, right? All these people heard John the Baptist's messengers come and saying, hey, are you the one who's to come, or are we looking for somebody else? How do you think that makes John the Baptist look? Just in your own minds. If totally human?
He is, at that time, he's in prison. He is under a lot of stress. It's not turning out the way he thought it would. He wants to know whether or not everything he's done was right. I think he's being totally base human.
I agree 1,000%. The question is, do you think the crowd viewed him, John the Baptist, that way in that moment?
No.
Yeah. So I agree with that assessment. I think Jesus sees him as 100% human. John the Baptist is like us. As he said, he's been arrested. He knows he's probably facing death. He's been kind of poking the bear with Herod. They had a really bizarre relationship. Herodias hated John the Baptist and wanted him gone. John knows that. He's not naive. And so he's questioning everything about himself. Did I do enough? Did I mess up? I was supposed to prepare the way for him, and now I'm arrested. I'm about to die, and it seems like his whole world is crashing in on him. I mean, it really, really does. I can't imagine what John was thinking in that moment. I mean, I can imagine, but not really imagine, right? John the Baptist is distraught by these messengers coming and saying, hey, that guy who's been baptizing thousands of people, a lot of these people here were baptized by John. He's preparing the way. And his message is bold, right? Remember, how does John introduce Jesus to the crowd? The first words out of his mouth were what? You brood of vipers, who warned you to come from the coming wrath? One is to come. His winnowing fork is already in his hand. He's going to separate the wheat from the chaff. The wheat he's going to gather into his barn. The chaff he's going to burn up in this unquenchable fire. John's not done yet. The axe is already laid to the root of the tree. Anything that doesn't bear fruit, he will cut down and throw into the fire. John's pounding that audience saying, I'm preparing the way for this guy who's going to come, and I'm telling you, you're going to be shocked. He's going to separate the wheat from the chaff. He's going to pick his own. He's coming to rescue Israel from all the oppression. He's here to save you. Wake up. And then John gets arrested. And John witnesses Jesus doing these soft miracles. Jesus isn't, for the most part, he's not hammering the crowds. Now he does sometimes. We have the woe to you passages. But for the most part, blessed are you who are poor in spirit. Blessed are you who mourn. Right? Jesus is being kind, compassionate, gracious. And I think John's probably scratching his head like, did I get this right? He also looks, I think, very weak to the audience, and Jesus knows this. And so Jesus is like, well, when you came into the wilderness, were you coming to witness this reed that's being swayed back and forth, right? That's viewed like he's talking about John. Are you coming to view this reed that's bending over and about to snap over? John's not a soft man. Jesus is defending John here, and we're going to see that. Brenda, you were going to say something?
I was going to say what you said about how John approached it, and then Jesus, without any prompting, without her asking for it, just turns and heals this Gentile, and he's probably like, wait a minute, why are you're reaching out to people who aren't even, and is this really, like that kind of emphasizes how he was feeling, like, oh, okay, wait, did I do the right thing? He just healed somebody who's not even part of us. Is he really gonna did I prepare the way the right way?
There are so many questions, you're right, so many questions swirling around in the minds of all the people witnessing this. They're like, wait, John's talking about this harsh guy who's coming, he's going to like split people, divide people, essentially, pluck out the people who are saved. It's going to be obvious. He's going to gather the chaff, set fire to it, and he's here to save Israel, right? And now, it's miracle after miracle after miracle. He's healing who? The Gentiles. And so then John sends these messengers in front of all this crowd. They ask this, hey, by the way, John the Baptist, he wants to know whether you're the prophet, that he's been preparing the way for, or is there another one to come? As Jesus doesn't ridicule him. I love that, and I think Charles is so right. Jesus knows that John is human. John has a lot that he's up against in this moment. Jesus doesn't come back with, how could he not know? What's like, right? Is he out of his mind? Jesus didn't answer that way. Jesus says to the crowd, did you guys come out in the wilderness to see a reed shaken by the wind? What then did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing? He's defending John here. Behold, those who are dressed in splendid clothing and live in luxury are in king's courts. If you're coming out to find this majestic, royal group of people, go to the king's palace. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is he of whom it's written, behold, I send my messenger before your face. He's still talking about John. Behold, I send my messenger before your face who will prepare your way before you. I tell you, among those born of women, none is greater than John. Wow. He's radically defending John. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than John. When all the people heard this, and the tax collectors too, they declared God just, having been baptized with the baptism of John. Remember I said, a lot of these people were physically baptized by John the Baptist or his disciples. But the Pharisees, all right, keep in mind, who's declaring God just? The people, the outcasts, the tax collectors. God is just, but the Pharisees and the lawyers rejected the purpose of God for themselves, not having been baptized by him. To what then shall I compare the people of this generation? And what are they like? Are they like children sitting in the marketplace and calling one another, we played the flute for you and you did not dance? Right? Kids want that. They crave that attention. Mom. They're like, Mom, hello, I'm being funny. And you're like, get out of my face. Right? So Jesus is kind of picking. He's like, you guys are like these little kids. We played the flute for you and you didn't dance. We sang a dirge and you didn't weep. For John the Baptist has come, eating no bread and drinking no wine, and you say he has a demon. John's too boring. He's too straightforward. He's too serious. And so he must be demon-possessed. But the Son of Man, he's a little bit too energetic. He's come eating and drinking. He's too happy. And you say, look at him. He's a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. In other words, damned if you do and damned if you don't. That's how you view Jesus. Yet wisdom is justified by all her children. Now, I know I said I wanted to spend time on this. Man, I might have to circle back to this and clean it up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Next week is Easter, and the week after I'm on vacation. But anyway, we're going to get into this because it's so cool, so powerful. One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house. What's Jesus just been talking about? The Pharisees, right? Pharisees typically were like catch you in a gotcha moment. And so we kind of have a hint leading up to this. Maybe he's not really inviting Jesus because he wants Jesus in his house. Maybe he's trying to find him in a gotcha. Well, as irony would have it, this Pharisee is going to get everything he thought that he wished for. All right? You're going to find this out in a minute. So Jesus reclined at table, and behold, a woman of the city who was a sinner. Virtually every scholar in the history of time leans toward the idea that she was a prostitute in the town. When she learned that he was reclining at table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment, and standing behind, listen to the Lukeism. Remember I talk about Luke? What's Luke notorious for? Think about the video camera. What's Luke notorious for? Somebody say it.
Changing the angle.
Changing the angle. Luke, when he writes, he does it through the tense that he uses. He does it. He slows things down. Videographers do this all the time when they edit videos. I've edited tons of videos. You draw emotion out and you tell a story in the way that you arrange the clips. It's not like, we're going to go to Premiere, Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere, and we're just going to drop a bunch of clips in there and like lay a music track down to add some emotion. That is not how I promise you that's not how editing works, not good editing. Good editing is arranging every single second with purpose. To draw attention, to slow things down at certain moments, to speed things up at certain moments, to find the right music, the right tone, the right pace, all that stuff. Luke does this brilliantly. Behold, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment, and standing behind him at his feet, weeping. He's on his side. Pillow, that's how people ate. It was like a low table, about the height of this, the pews, or maybe a little lower. They're on a pillow, they're leaning, his feet are to his side. She comes into the house unannounced, uninvited. She begins weeping. She's at his feet. She began to wet his feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head and kissed his feet and anointed him with the ointment. I want all of you ladies who have long hair to think about lying at somebody's feet, feeling shame, feeling weight, feeling guilt, feeling sorrow, feeling all these emotions, and it just finally, it hits you like a stinking wall. And you just got to puke this stuff out. You got to get rid of all of that guilt and shame. You already feel shame. You feel the weight of that. And you begin to cry. And as you're crying uncontrollably, you bend over and you're kissing somebody's feet. And it's not just tears. I say this all the time. It's tears and snot and all these bodily fluids that you didn't know you have. They just start coming out. I call it ugly crying. And we ugly cry. And she takes her hair, which is an adornment of beauty, and she begins to grind her hair into her tears and her snot that are dripping onto this person's feet who she absolutely is humiliated. She's so humble, and she's begging for forgiveness. And now she's grinding her hair into her own tears and snot, wiping his feet and pouring oil. So there's the smell of oil. This is all ground into her hair. There's oil, there are tears, there's snot. She's on the ground in front of other people. This isn't a private encounter. She's in a home that she wasn't even invited into. She literally walked in uninvited. She began to wet his feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head and kissed his feet and anointed them with ointment. Now when the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is who's touching him, for she is a sinner. There's the gotcha. He's excited. He's getting everything that he invites Jesus into his house. I hope there's a moment, like a gotcha moment. And I don't think he's thinking this scenario. I think he's like, I'm going to catch him in his words. I'm going to say something. I'm going to ask something about divorce and remarriage. I'm going to do a Pharisee thing. This is a gold mine for this Pharisee. And Jesus, answering, said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. And he answered, say it, teacher. Like he's ready. Yeah, you let her have it. Jesus said, a certain moneylender had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii, about 20 months' worth. The other owed 50, about 2 days' worth. And when they could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now, which of them will love him more? Simon answered, well, the one, I suppose, whom he canceled the larger debt. And he said to him, you have judged rightly. Then listen to this Lukeism very, very closely. He's on his side. The woman is on her hands and knees, weeping, crying, wiping her tears and snot with her hair. Turning toward the woman, he said to Simon. He's looking at the woman. He's saying to Simon, do you see this woman? The word he uses in Greek is blepo. There are a lot of words that mean to see. The word blepo means, do you see her? You see, there's a word, trying to think in English, a word that I could use for when we have an exchange at the cash register. Because this isn't what we do at the cash register. We're like looking down. We don't make eye contact. Thank you. Have a nice day. Yep. Have a nice day. Yep. Bye. We're on our way. We can't technically see a lady at the cash register. He saw her. Do you see this woman? Remember, he's looking at the woman talking to Simon. Do you see her? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she's wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she's not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore, I tell you, her sins, which are many, it's not a secret. Jesus isn't embarrassing her. It's no secret that she has a lot of sins. Her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little. He said to her, your sins are forgiven. Then those who were at table with him began to say among themselves, listen to what their problem is. Who is this who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. I put that in bold for a number of reasons, but one, I want to focus on that word just for a second, and I promise I'm done. I'm way over time. I know it. That word for in is the Greek word ace, which is a very common word. It's a word used in Acts 2:38. They were baptized ace, the forgiveness of sins, for the forgiveness of sins. It means to or for, not because, but for or to. Go for the peace that I've given you. Or go to the peace that I've given you. Jesus delivers her in absolute 100% peace. I can't imagine the gift that he just gave her. It's incredible. All right, we're way out of time. I'm going to stop there. We'll see you in about 10 minutes, and then we'll begin with worship.